to the beginning of our week of workshops here at cyber.org. We're starting it all off with our introduction to the cyber range. For me, one of the most exciting of all the PDs. I know that as people are starting to load in, we have quite a few people. This was the one that had the biggest sign up. We had a total of 197 people signed up. So I don't know if we're going to get all of those people. If we do, this is going to be pretty exciting because this will be the biggest PD I've ever done. So I'm kind of excited for that too. Kind of nervous. My name is Adam Topher, and assisting me today is Brandon, and then we also have Jonathan here with us. So if anybody needs any help while one of us is presenting, feel free to message the others in chat, Brandon or Jonathan, if I'm talking, or if at one point Brandon will be presenting as well, and then you can feel free to message either me or Jonathan, and we're happy to assist you in any way. So if we're working in the PMs and you need help, one of us to jump in, we're happy to do that, and we can give you guys a hand. So today, it's mostly going to be me and Brandon talking. So this is just a kind of background on us. I've been here at cyber.org, actually, both Brandon and I, because we started on the same day. We've been here for about a year and a half now. We started at the end of February last year. I like pretty much anything RF, radio frequencies. I've been into RC cars since I was probably 3 or 4 years old. So one of those there was built in the early 90s, and the other one was just built a few months ago. So one I built with my dad as the very first car that we built together, and then the green one on the right was built with my son. He just turned 4, so it's kind of interesting to have those two together. I spent 6 years in the classroom teaching in Louisiana and Texas, and then came here to work at cyber.org. So it's interesting to be on both sides, in the classroom and then now developing curriculum. Brandon, do you want to say anything about yourself?
Sure. So I always tell people I did the backwards route. I actually started with professional development and leading workshops, served as a robotics trainer, mentor for a few groups, did several different things as far as helping out teachers in the classroom. Then decided I wanted to go into the classroom myself. I went the more traditional science route. So biology, chemistry, I like to tell people pretty much if it was anything that you could light on fire in the classroom, I'm the one that did it. I was that science teacher. Every time we had a fire drill, they would ask if set it off. But then once I started doing that, I started getting more into the cyber classes. Being from this area, I taught just about every cyber course that was offered. At the time, it was called NYSERC. Now it's known as cyber.org. So I started with cyber literacy, did cyber literacy 1, 2, cyber science, computer science, AP computer science, and on and on. So one of those teachers, and I'm sure there's a few that we have today that you have 5 or 6 different preps going on all at once. Voluntold to teach quite a few subjects as well. But went from teaching the curriculum to then writing the curriculum when I came on board. As Adam mentioned, we came on, had the same day, same first day, and now serve as one of the curriculum developers. So glad to be here. And I see I've met a few of you. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
So our goal today is to welcome everybody, kind of be sure everybody has the ability to log in. If you don't have an account today, it's not a huge deal. You're still going to be able to participate in both of the labs to get a feeling for how the range works. I know in the email I sent, I requested that everybody sign up for the range and the curriculum. You're still going to be able to do the majority of all the stuff we do today. Now, everything we're doing today is recorded, so you can always go back and watch this later if you do happen to get an account later. But one of the things we're going to do today is practice setting up an account, practice adding and deleting students, changing students' info in the range. You wouldn't be able to do that part if you don't have an actual range account. So that'll be the only part that you miss. So that's really kind of the only thing. So in a moment, we're going to share a Google Doc, and that Google Doc is going to have all the logins for the temporary accounts that we're going to use today, And that's how we're going to get in to do everything today. So everyone can be in the same classroom, and being in the same classroom is going to allow us to be able to help you if you get stuck. One of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to start from the assumption that everybody was on the same level, that we had no idea what a virtual machine is, what a range was. And so we want to kind of help everybody from that level. And the idea of virtualization is a technology used to allow a computer to have more than one operating system. And so, well, on the next slide, we kind of talk about it as a house in a house. Basically, it's a computer inside of your computer. Your computer acts as the host machine, and then everything else runs inside of it. So a hypervisor is what allows that to happen. It's between the virtual machine and the, like I said, host machine, and they're a layer that enables that virtualization to happen. We do have a lesson inside of our Intro to Cybersecurity course that goes through all this material, so it helps teach the students and, well, of course, the teachers how all of this works. And some of this information is kind of taken from there as well. Most servers that we think of, most of the internet, is hosted on these kind of machines. Not much of the internet these days runs on actual hardware. It's all virtual machines that run on servers. To kind of drive home the idea, virtual machines vary in type, but typically they are software-based machines that run on another physical machine, essentially a computer inside a computer. So if we want to think about it, an analogy, we could think about it, an aquarium inside of a house. The fish thinks that his house is real and it's everything that he needs to survive, but it all lives inside of your actual house. So your house would be that physical device that contains everything that you need to live and function, and the aquarium represents that virtual machine, the home for the fish. That's everything they need to live and function. And then you can interact with both, but overall, you're living inside of your house, and the fish is living inside the virtual machine. So students, whenever they use our virtual machines on the range, they'd be essentially inside of that aquarium, and they can't get out of it. They're going to be in what we like to call a sandbox that you set up for them. And that leads to the next point, where sandboxing is the separation between software and hardware, and it creates a barrier to help improve security. It kind of gives an optimization for using of expensive hardware such as servers, and portability, or easy restoration of virtual machines. So if something breaks, it's not a big deal. You haven't done anything serious. All you do is reset your machine, start it back up again. So when it comes to our actual range, what is it? It's cloud hosted. It's all hosted on Amazon Web Services. It's browser based, so you don't need any special hardware in your school to make it work. There's no software to install. It's scalable. So at the minimum, you can have a Chromebook in your classroom. A student can log into their Chromebook on the web browser, and they can log into the range and use our virtual machines. We currently have 4 virtual machines. And so when I say scalable, what I mean is you can have one class and the students can have 4 virtual machines, or you can have 4 classes and the students can have 4 virtual machines each. So it can grow as you grow. So you can have 1 year your first cybersecurity class, and then later, if you have 4 cybersecurity classes, you can have more classrooms. You can have 5 students in your class, or you can have 30 students in your class. This can grow as you grow. It's engaging, and so it keeps students interactive with the material that they're learning. So rather than just the theory of cybersecurity, it gives them that hands-on knowledge of using the tools that we talk about. And one of the biggest benefits we like to talk about is non-persistence. So our machines will automatically shut down anywhere between 2 and 3 hours after they're turned on. And while some people might look at this as a negative, one of the benefits of it is it doesn't store any information. It doesn't store any PII on the machine. So at that shutdown time, if you turn it on again, it's a completely new machine. So it won't be broken. It won't store any information in it. And nothing is saved there. So when it comes back on, it's brand new and you get to start from scratch. So you don't have to worry about the machines. And the last bullet point, and probably one of the biggest ones, is that it's free. It doesn't cost anything. It's all funded by CISA and Department of actually, well, the range itself is funded by Louisiana at this time, but all of our material is funded by CISA and Department of Homeland Security. So let's go ahead and log in so we can do our first activity. So you should see, can you put that in the chat, Brandon? Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat. Let me catch up. See everybody saying hello, welcome. Will we get a copy of the slideshow? We can. I can email the slideshow out to everybody. The same people, if you got an email from me about this PD, I can email a copy of the slideshow. That I can definitely do that. For Fredericks. CyberRange is free to use, yes. The question about setting up the virtual machines from Imani, I think we're going to answer that a little bit later whenever we go through how to start machines and things like that. So yeah, and I see Brandon's go ahead and link the Google Doc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Google Sheet. Oh, that is not the right Google Sheet. I pulled one up earlier, and I guess I did not change the link in there. I apologize. I'll have to fix that. But this is what you should see. What I'd like you to do is just pick a teacher, because there's 200 in here, and there are less than 200 of us. You can put your name, just because it'll help to remember where you put your name at. And then what you have is a nickname next to you, because it'll help us find you when it's time to help if necessary. And then next to the teacher number that you select is a username. The username is what's important, this column here. That's what you're going to use to log in. And then everyone has the same password. So all you have to remember is that username. And then whenever you try to log in, if you go to apps.cyber.org, it's going to bring you to this login page. And here, you're going to hit the login button, and you're going to use that login that you had on the page here. So you can copy and paste that if you want into the login, and then everyone's going to have the same password. It's just lowercase p password. So you're not going to type an actual email in here. All you're going to type is this. If you do already have an account, you might want to open this in an incognito window. If you use Chrome, you would just incognito window. If you, Safari, I think Safari can, I actually never tried, but I know that Edge, incognito window, and that'll allow you to log in. That way you don't disrupt maybe your normal login or however you choose to do it. So what I'm looking at here is the actual classroom from a teacher's perspective. It might be good actually if I go back to this.
I think you'll have to change windows. We still see your PowerPoint.
Oh, I thought I was presenting the whole, I was only presenting PowerPoint. Sorry. So the whole time I was telling you about the other thing and you weren't seeing it. My bad.
They're in there though.
New share. Let me just share my whole screen. How about that? So you see the PowerPoint now, and if I pull up, can everybody see my Chrome window?
Nope. Probably unshare and then reshare again.
So I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to, okay. How about now?
Yep.
So I'm just going to pick one of the students that nobody's using. This will be useful later. Okay. So as a student, what you should see here is one classroom is available to you. It's labeled as Topher and teacher's Do. And then when you click in there, you have 4 machine options. 2 are already booted for you, the Kali Linux machine and the Windows 7 machine. So this is where we want to be right now. Now, if I swap back, can everybody see my presentation still, or do I need to change my share again? Or actually, I can stop sharing because I'm going to give it over to Brandon, and Brandon's going to take over because he's going to show you a lab. I see someone said incognito is blocked in their district. That's fine. You don't have to use it in incognito. I just often suggest that because then you don't have to worry about it overlapping your logins. By all means, you don't have to log in incognito.
All right. Just double check. Everybody was able to log in successfully. I saw quite a few people clicking on and adding their names. So I think we got the bulk of everyone. If not, just pick one of the empty squares on that. You can always scroll down and pick from the bottom of the list. It's more empty. But once you get logged in, just go ahead and share. All right. And so you should be seeing the login screen, or not the login screen, the list. So pull from here, use that username, and then use password. And then you'll end up in the classroom. Now, this is just what it looks like on our side as the teacher. So if you do have a teacher account, notice those same nicknames, usernames. There is a column for passwords. We have that where you can hide it or unhide it based on what's going what you're doing. If you didn't want to show the passwords off to the classroom, you could still show the usernames. And then as the teacher, and you would be able to do this in your teacher account, you can see what machines are active, if any, along with a few other options. And we'll go all that later. But what I'm going to do is have you first, I'm going to go over what's called our fishery lab. I'm going to demo it. So it's a little bit of a deviation from the way the lab runs in the classroom. If you're wondering where this is from, if you have curriculum access, and we'll cover curriculum access and getting to it. But this lab actually comes from Unit 2 of the cybersecurity course. So it's our main cybersecurity course under Unit 2, Social Engineering and Access Control. And the particular lab I'm going to demo is the phishing lab. And so if you have access, you could click on this, download the PowerPoint, and get all the steps. But for today, I'm just going to show you essentially what are some ways you can take it and actually customize it a little bit or add to it so that you can showcase it to students. So when you're inside your machine, what I want you to do first is you should see a list of two machines that say connect. One is a Kali Linux machine and one is a Windows 7 machine. I want you to click on the Windows 7 machine. And so once you are in the Windows 7 machine, you're going to open up Internet Explorer, which is down at the bottom. So you'll open that up, and inside the URL, and I kind of already have this open, you're going to end up seeing that. But inside the URL up here, you're going to type in an IP address. And what I'm going to do is copy, where's the chat? I'm going to copy the IP address for everyone and the URL that is associated with it. So open up Internet Explorer, inside the URL bar, type this in. And so if I go over to my Windows machine, and if you try to copy paste from the chat, let's see. Frederick says, can you reprint spreadsheet? Okay. A couple of people asking for the spreadsheet. If one of y'all can take care of that, either Adam or Bartles. So if you type in the IP address that I had, plus add prize.html at the end, you should have a pop-up that looks like this. And so with the phishing lab, the main idea is it uses, and I'll show you what it actually uses to run this here in a little bit, but the students would create a fake email. With that fake email, they would include a link that then goes to a tool that is meant for harvesting credentials. And so as you set up that email, you then take that email and you move it over to our Apache server that's on the Kali machine. you start that server and you start it up to where it's actually hosting that page. So what you're doing now is if you logged into the Windows machine, you opened up Internet Explorer, you went to that IP address with that price, you should see this page. Everybody seeing this page on their machine? You can do this, Joyce, or you can just watch. So it's kind of a mixture, a demo, or you can do both. And so when you see this, and before anybody gives me too much trouble, my HTML coding is not the best, but I tried my best in a short amount of time. And so once you get to this page, so the idea of the phishing lab is you're setting up a fake email. In this case, I set up a fake web page. It falls under social engineering. And so we're trying to get someone to fall for a particular scam, a phishing attack by clicking on a link. And so you'll notice that the here, and probably for you, since I've clicked on it already, is turned purple. For you, it should be the same color as the rest of the blue, or a similar color. So if you click on that, you'll get this little certificate error. That's gonna pop up. It's always gonna pop up because we're pulling from an IP address. The lab doesn't go through the process of actually creating a certificate for that website. So that's one of the things that you can talk about and discuss with your students is, yes, we had this web page, we can make it look fancier, put some images and things like that in it. That's all part of social engineering, is getting someone to fall for that. So there's quite a bit of extra work you could go into this, as well as customizing the URL. But if we click here, since we don't have an active certificate for this website that I just made kind of on the fly really quickly, we're going to click continue to this website. It's not recommended. Google would do a similar thing, but you may have a drop-down menu. And the reason we use, just so you know, Internet Explorer is it's a little bit less memory intensive. So it'll run a little smoother inside the Windows 7. So I'm going to continue to this website. And then I get this little pop-up here. For you, you should actually have seen a login window. And so for me, it wouldn't, it's not going to show up twice because I've already done it once. But you should see a little login window. And when this pops up, I always tell people, so if you started typing already, type in fake credentials. Do not type in your actual credentials. And just to walk you through, I'm going to pick one from the sheet that's not in use. So if I do pick 76. So what I'm going to do is go down and find '76. Open up the Windows machine. And go to that IP. Get rid of this how-to tutorial pop-up. 120.78 price.html. So I have this, I click here, continue to this website. Even though it doesn't recommend it, Internet Explorer is trying to actually protect you just a little bit by warning you, and you should have seen this pop up here. And so if I type in, again, I'm just going to do some fake credentials. And so the lab goes through the idea, again, creating that email and trying to get the user to undergo a system update. Once you do this, it doesn't matter what you do. You can click find, save, or cancel. You can talk about that if you had a pop-up like this, how that would be another sign that maybe something went wrong. You clicked on a link that was malicious. You can close that. It doesn't matter. But the fun side of it is if I go over to the machine that I've had this running, so I started this Kali machine up with the software that is listed in the lab, open this terminal. And if you entered anything, you'll notice I have a ton of information here. So I'm going to scroll up at the top so you can see how this actually got started. So when I first started up this machine, this is before we actually started the meeting and everybody in, I ran a command called sudo fishery. It's really quick. It gives sudo is just a way to give quick admin rights for running a command. Fishery actually starts up the fishery credential harvesting tool. So it starts up and it starts listening on port 443. So it's actually a secure port, even though it's not. We got that certificate error, and so it's running through a secure port. I always kind of find this ironic. If somebody was listening in, running something, if you're familiar with Wireshark or just monitoring the network, this is actually running on a secure line, so they couldn't harvest your credentials from monitoring the network, but whoever is on the malicious end as the user is able to collect them. So then I did a test run, make sure everything was okay and it worked. And then you'll notice all of these. So these are all of your machines connecting. And so whatever machine you're on, if you look at some of these IP addresses, you may see your IP address listed from your Windows machine. And so it would be listed up at the top next to on the tab for the browser. So it'll say Windows 7. They all start with 10.15, and you'll notice those match. So it picks up just that you connected to my machine. And then once I scroll down, I start getting those credentials. So someone typed in fake credentials. Someone typed in Tom, then John, random lettering, things like that. How do I get back to see my machine and IP address? Did you close your machine? Doctor Who, let's see. And so this is fun. Like I said, I did this more just a demo style. The students would actually go through the entire process from start to finish. They would start inside the Kali machine. They would start fishery. They would actually draft the email. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new terminal. I'm going to navigate over to the desktop just to show you, and I'll do LeafPad. And so this is the fake web page. Like I said, had to give me too much trouble for my HTML skills. They're not the greatest, but it was enough to create the fake page. And so if it's a little hard to see, I can zoom in. And you can see, and so students would actually draft something like this. They wouldn't necessarily do the headers and change the colors, but they would go through creating a paragraph, drafting that email, typing everything, and then moving it over to the server. What response is required on the pop-up on continue anyway? Is that if it's in the browser on the Windows side, you just click on the red continue the website and it'll say like not recommended or something similar to that. Any questions about that?
Someone
Maybe some
asked
of
which
the-
lab this was.
So this comes from, if you're in Canvas, it's our main cybersecurity course. And it is under Unit 2, Social Engineering and Access Control. And there's actually a couple of lessons on phishing. The first one is phishing and spam and goes over another one of our popular credential harvesting tools that uses the SE toolkit. This one actually comes from the 5.6.1 phishing awareness and uses fishery for that. So the pop-up that says find, save, and cancel. At that point, if you had that pop-up where you entered fake credentials, it really doesn't matter if you hit find, save, or cancel. There's nothing actually there. So you can just close it out. Is there a way to set this up on the locals? You could do something like this. Like if you have something, so I take it you have kind of your own isolated network inside your classroom, which some teachers have set up. That's awesome, and I'm jealous. We didn't have that in my classroom. But you could, the fishery tool is actually found on GitHub. So you could pull it from that. So if you had something you wanted to run, you could do it on that isolated network. I would just make sure you're not trying to do it on anything connected to the school network. But while we're talking about that, and I know it was a question mentioned earlier, with running the labs on your own virtual machines or anything like that, all of our labs are tailored based on the machines that we have in the range. So the lab, if I just show it to you, it comes with that particular tool already downloaded. And if I move it over, so it would tell you what machines are needed, what tool, and it says it's already on there. But it is part of the apt repository, so you could actually install it straight from, if you have a Kali Linux running, you can install it from that. It will, as far as the steps, just starting it, finding the IP addresses, setting up the environments, the starting fishery, creating the email, and then here's what the actual students would type in. And so for theirs, it's a little bit easier. It's some basic HTML with just paragraphs. And then notice the IP address that you put in, we have to specify, since it's running on that specific port, it has to be 443 there. Any other questions? And so while looking at these, and I'm sure it may come up, we like to mention this, is if you were demoing this, so you can see here, there was kind of a break. So I had several other people actually make a connection to it. I have this live. If you were doing this way inside your classroom, where you had the students entering different usernames and passwords, and it was popping up on your screen, you may have that student that thinks it's funny to put something maybe inappropriate inside the machine and have it pop up on your machine. So one thing I'll go ahead and mention is all of these IP addresses that pop up. So when you see that IP address and then you see which one it actually came from, you can actually look at, as the teacher, those other machines. So when you click on other machines, you just see two machines. You're going to see your Kali Linux machine, your Windows 7. So say I had something inappropriate pop up, what I would do then is just scroll down, look for that IP address. And so hopefully nobody's 113, but I'm just picking one at random. So say this particular, well, not that one. This one popped up for the Windows 7. And they had that on there. I could easily look at it and say, well, here's my roster, who's, student 113 or student 13, and I would be able to pull and tell who did that. And something I always tell teachers, if I was going through this lab with students, I would tell students the same thing, that we don't put anything inappropriate that would pop up, because it can all be traced back to that machine and who was doing it. All right. If there's not any other questions, I'm going to stop sharing and pass the torch back to Adam. The Olympics are going, so I had to make the reference.
One person did ask about the GitHub lab link or GitHub link, but it's not part of the lab. So if you wanted to find that, it's external. So you just have to search for that. It's not part of our curriculum. It's not something that we created. For next, what I'd like to do is showcase how the teacher's classroom works, because so far what you guys have been working in is the student's classroom. So I want to share my screen. Excuse me. If you do have an actual classroom, go ahead and log into that. Actually, let me stop my share for a second. Go ahead and log into your classroom if you have one. If you don't have one, and this will be a part you'll just have to watch. If you can stay logged in to our temporary classroom, that would be awesome. If you have a way to log into the other one at the same time, because we're going to go back to that temporary classroom in just a moment and do another lab. But we wanted to go into this in the middle while we had a moment. So I'm going to log in. Apps. Let's see. Okay, so now let me share this screen. I have a couple of classrooms created in a demo classroom. Which yes, so it's a demo account, and I have some demo. I have a few demo classrooms. No, so yes, you can. So Joyce asked if they can stay in the machine initially open. They can. If you don't have your own account already, then you can just stay in there and you can watch this. If you do have your own account on the range, then now is a good time to pivot over to that. So open a new browser and log in, or open another tab. You can log out if you need to, but find a way to log into your actual teacher account. Because what we're going to do is we're going to create some teacher accounts, essentially, student accounts. We're gonna log in with our teacher credentials, the ones we actually have, and we're gonna practice creating a classroom if you don't already have your limit of classrooms. We're gonna add students. We're gonna delete students. And just to be sure you can see this, I'm gonna share my presentation because earlier it didn't work. We're going to I'm going to show you how, if you have a limit already. So like on the screen currently, it says, if you already have your limited 2 classrooms, if for some reason you need a 3rd classroom, you can request that. You just have to email apps@cyber.org. And it's the same way for a class. If your class, for some reason you teach more than 39 students, you can email apps@cyber.org and we can increase that limit. I'm also going to say a prayer for you. Because I feel bad for anyone that has to teach more than 39 students at one time. More than 20 is a lot, but currently the way it works, whenever you log in, you can create up to 2 classes, and one class has a maximum of 40 seats. The teacher counts as a seat. So technically, you only get 39 students in a classroom. And so I'm going to hold on just a second because I want to be sure everybody can get in and then everybody can add a class. So yeah, I'm going to keep explaining. So you get 2 classes. And then it'll let you know if you try and add a 3rd class that you've reached a limit. So you can't make any more. And then your classes, once you make them, you can put a name on them. And let's say you miss, I do not have with courses. So Katrina's saying that they have a dashboard with courses. I'm guessing that probably you're in the Canvas, not in the range. You would need to be on apps@cyber.org. If your screen looks like this, then you're in the curriculum. That is our Canvas. If you're what you want your screen to look like is this. Well, not you want it to look like this, because then you'd have a classroom of 200 students, and that would feel really bad for you. But you want to log into the apps@cyber.org. They are 2 separate accounts. They require 2 separate logins. You can use the same email address and the same password, but they are totally separate. It's a separate team that runs them. Everything is different. Let me figure out where I was so I can get back to that. Okay. Can everybody see this? Hopefully you can. So what I'd like to show you guys is that classroom and then how we can create students. So like I was saying, once you have a classroom open, there's a button in the top right that looks like a little person with a plus sign next to it. That's how you add students. If for some reason when you created a classroom, the you misspelled the name, or you just want to change the name of the classroom, you can totally do that. That's in the settings, and I'll show you how to do that too. So one of the keys is you need to have students in the classroom in order to change the name of the class. So we're going to want to add students to the classroom today. We're going to change the names of students. We can even show you how to change the name of a classroom, how to delete students, all the stuff we're going to go over. So let's say you added students, you added 10 students. You can do it now, but we're going to have a practice moment in a little bit later. You can change the nicknames and passwords assigned to the accounts. So like say you want to make it really easy for your students. They would all have unique usernames, just like we all did earlier, but they would all have the same password. Say you just wanted it to be your mascot or something like that. You can totally do that. You just click on the edit button next to the students, and that's where you edit the nickname and the password of the students. And then you type in whatever new nickname and password you want. The only thing you cannot change, if you notice in this image, it shows the nickname for the first one is Adonis Romero. And then in the second screenshot, it shows the nickname now is student_01. That nickname is editable and the password is editable, but the username is not something that you can edit. It's pre-generated by the system, and that is unique to every user that's created. And so those can never be changed. Oops, sorry, went too far. Once you've created the students, you can then launch the machines for them. So for instance, when you want to launch a machine, you would click on the launch button, and then it gives you a chance to select the machine type. So you could, for instance, today we used Kali, and we used Windows 7. So you would select Kali, and then you would either select one student, or you have a selection that is select all, and it'll populate all the students in your class, and you can launch them all at one time. Typically, we suggest doing it this way because it's easier and faster. So if you have like a do now or a bell ringer in the beginning of class, you could select all your students for the machines that you want to launch. And by the time you're done taking roll and that bell ringer is finished, all your machines will be set up and ready to go whenever your class starts. The students themselves can launch them. Earlier, whenever we were in the class and you saw your 4 machines, 2 of them were launched, Kali and Windows. In your student machine, you have the ability to launch that Ubuntu and that Server 22. So students, if they're working at home or they're working on their own, they can launch a machine if they need it without you. So you don't have to launch it for all of them. In the beginning of class, if you have 22 students and they each launch their own instance, it's 22 times that the system makes a call out to AWS. Whereas as the teacher, if you launch all 22 machines in the beginning of class, it's one call to AWS, so it launches faster. That's just the only tip that we give, where it's fine for students to launch them, but if you want it to go faster, if you launch the whole class at once, it will launch them faster. Not that it costs any more money or anything like that, it's just that it moves quicker if you launch all the machines at once. There's a menu on the top right next to where it says launch VMs and where you can add classes. Add students. That's what I call the kebab menu. It has lots of names, 3-dot menu. There you can remove students. You can download a CSV. You can terminate VMs, or you can edit settings. When you remove people, that's just deleting an account. You would just select somebody to remove. Download a CSV is the easiest way to get the information from your class. So that's actually how I created our spreadsheet today, where we're putting our info in for that class of 200 students. It makes it very, very nice, actually. I created a table with it, so that's why it has the fancy teacher nickname, username at the top. And then you can, sort the fields. But typically it doesn't come out that fancy. It's just very basic CSV. Terminate VMs it will actually close every single VM in your class. So if you have 22 students and they all have 4 VMs running, it'll shut all of them down. Whereas if you want to terminate a single VM, you have to hit the edit button, and then you can click and close one. After you have at least one student in the class, the settings option will appear. And the only thing that really does is allows you to change the name of the class. So those are the 4 main administrative options. I see a couple of questions popping up. Somebody said we're limited to 3 classrooms. If so, can we use them randomly throughout the day? If we have more than 3 cyber classes. So actually you're not limited to 3.
It's about to.
You're initially limited to 2. But in theory, you could teach all of your classes from one class. If you had 1 classroom in the range, you could have your students set up with nickname student 1 through student 20 or student 1 through 25. And the passwords could be, they could all be password really. And then at the beginning of a class, you could launch the VMs, students log in, and like the stations, I don't know how your lab is set up, but if you have labs that are stations, you could essentially call them station 1 through 25. And then when a student sits down at a station, they see the login and they just log in with that. And they have their machines running and they're good to go. When they leave, you shut everything down. When the next set of students comes in, you just boot up new machines because the machines expire and there's nothing left on them whenever you turn them off. There's no PII on the machines. The only time this becomes an issue is whenever students want to do homework. And if 3 students all log in to the same account at night trying to do homework, then it would become an issue. Or if you have an incredibly studious student, then they want to log in maybe in a different class when they're bored, or when they're at home and they remember their login and password, then they might have trouble getting into the system because somebody else might be in the system. So that's when it comes to be good to have a class for each of your classes. Then the next question said, we add a student and need to remove them. Does that spot become available again? Well, yeah, of course. You can add, like I said, up to 39 students. You just delete a student if you need one and add another one. But in theory, if you had 4 classes of 39 students, that's a lot of spots. We're not really limiting you on spots. And then somebody said, should we see this in action? We're going to. Our next slide is a practice slide. If you don't have 2 classrooms already, or if you don't have your limit of classrooms, I would ask that you go ahead and create a classroom. And even if you do already have your classrooms, try adding 10 students to your class. And then these are just my challenges for you. My challenge is to change the nickname of 1 student to practice 1, change the nickname to practice 2, and then change the password for both of those students to password. And then try deleting student who's called practice 1, and then try exporting that CSV. And then if somebody needs, unfortunately with this, we can't get into your computer because this is on your actual computer. So we can't really help you with this. We can take a look at your classroom if you have issues, because the 3 of us in here, we're all admins in the system. So if ever you need help, you could always email us, or you could call here in the office. If you email apps@cyber.org, somebody will get back to you. But we can help you with your classroom as far as getting your classroom set up, helping to understand how it works. But try giving this a shot as far as hands-on practice. I saw, can any of this be done in Chromebook? Yes, that's the beauty of it. Because it's all based in iframes in the web browser, it'll work on a Chromebook just fine. Yeah. Depending on the Chromebook that you have, the screen can be very small. And so you might have to get very good at zooming. But most students have pretty good eyes, so they're pretty good at seeing what's on the screen. Some of the stuff I find that earlier, and I'll show it to you in a moment when I do the next lab. But earlier, if you saw when Brandon was presenting, there was a thing at the top that said other machines, and then there was a red X, and there was a blue arrow pointing 2 different ways. That makes the actual VM full screen. And I find that helps on Chromebooks because it'll take up the whole screen rather than just a small part of the browser, or it'll take up more of the browser anyway. And that can help on a small Chromebook screen. Although Chromebooks come all sizes, so I don't know exactly what size you have. It's just the little 10-inch Chromebooks that tend to be a little hard to use sometimes. If anybody's having any issue with this, let us know. Maybe we can try help and walk you through. It's not that any of this is particularly hard. it's just that it can be challenging. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pop over to mine, and I'm going to show you how I do it. So I'm going to go to demonstration. First, I'm going to remove all my participants. So you have the option to select all and hit submit. And then whenever so hopefully you have a classroom that looks kind of like this. If not, then we can just you can either change it. I don't want you to have to delete a classroom that you have that's in good shape. So don't worry about that. But my thought process is come here to the little blue person with a plus arrow, and then press 10, and then hit submit. And that's going to generate 10 students. It might take a moment, but it'll generate 10 students for you. And then you can pick any student really, but you come to the edit option, and you want to edit the nickname to be practice_1, and then the password is password, and press save. And then another one, so notice it disappeared. Well, where did it go? Well, these are always going to be in alphabetical order. And then here, edit practice_2. And then the password is password. Save. And then the other thing I wanted to do, passwords can be edited, sorry. So if you look here, if I press the little eyeball and I see password is now displayed, you'll see my practice 1 has a password and practice 2 has password as password. Password for you cannot be edited here. Notice that my nickname is my name. My teacher username, that doesn't change because you never log in as the teacher. You log in only in the top level whenever you initially log in. And it doesn't have a password for the teacher here because the teacher well, obviously you wouldn't want the students to see your password, but it just doesn't display here. That's the way it's programmed. So just to prove that I can edit it, I'll come to this Washita here, and I'm going to change it to student. I'm changing the password to student. And so you can see it came down here to student and the password student. The thing that is not editable are these usernames. And then the other thing I had on the agenda was to delete practice 1. So you can come here to edit. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You come here, remove participant. And so you're going to choose at least one. So practice 1 is going to be in the box now. And if I hit submit, practice 1 is now gone. We're down to 9 students. Okay, Winnie said they attempted to launch VMs for all the students and was unable to remove a participant until they terminated VMs because they said they can only remove participants that are not active. That's a good point, and it's something I never really thought about. So just to show what they're talking about, if I launch Ubuntu and I select all and launch, now if I go to practice 2 and I edit, and I remove participant, so I can't select anyone. I never tried to do this before. I can only select ones with no active virtual machines. So then if I come here, and you can actually terminate a machine from here, but you cannot terminate it unless it is set up. It has to be green. Here, you can terminate VMs and you can terminate all of them at the same time. If they're setting up, they'll move to terminating. I hope that kind of explained a little bit of that. If that makes sense. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to get into the metadata lab. So if everybody could pivot back to their student account, the one that we set up that uses the Google Sheet. I'll give everybody a second to get in there. Hopefully you can see my presentation. What I have done is I've added this entire lab. This lab comes from our cybersecurity course. So I'm going to just to show you how to get there. If you've never used the Canvas before, yours might look a little different than mine. So if you just ignore the bottom 2 rows, what you should normally see is elementary school, middle school, high school, and past content. So if you click on high school, it'll take you into all of our high school content. And then from there, you would see cybersecurity. And then under cybersecurity, there is a metadata lab, and that is the one that we'll be doing. So if I'm just going to Control F, and I'm going to type meta, and it'll take me to Unit 9. And Unit 9 under logs, there's a lab called metadata, and that's the one we're going to be doing. I've added it just in case you don't have access to this. I've added all the slides from the metadata lab to our presentation, which I'll be sharing with everybody later. Okay. I'm gonna get into this, and then I'm gonna hide the lab, and I'm gonna pull up the machine that we'll be working in. So for this one, all you specifically need is a Kali virtual machine. You need EXIF tool, and this works off with the security objective SYO 701. And then we're going to talk about metadata. So metadata is any kind of descriptive data about files. Metadata can be in emails, things like who sent it, who received it, etc. It can be mobile, things like locations, like your phone stores a location, call logs, etc. Files can be things like who created a file, when was it created, etc. Things like that. So that's what we're gonna talk about. And specifically today, we're gonna look at some images. So we're gonna set up our environment, we're gonna download an image, and we're gonna install the EXIF tool to look at like a little bit deeper into the images rather than just on the surface, looking at a pretty image. We're gonna find some information about it and maybe where it came from. Okay, so I'm gonna pop into my Kali machine. You guys also wanna be in your Kali Linux machine. So hopefully you guys have had enough time to pop in there. This is what I was talking about earlier. When I said at the top, it says other machines, there's a blue maximize arrow and a close. So if you hit that on a Chromebook, it'll make it bigger and easier to see. So it doesn't make it huge, but it does make it a little bit different, a little bit bigger. Metadata is under Unit 9, Joyce. Jennifer, you're asking to show it again. Are you talking about the maximize option? It just removes that bar. And also I showed someone earlier, if you highlight your tab, it'll show you your IP address, because sometimes if you have a lot of tabs, if your tabs can be kind of small, your IP address will typically be in your tab. Your IP address will appear in your terminal, but also if you click other machines, as a student, you would only see your machines. As a teacher, you'll see every machine in your classroom. So there you'll see all the IP addresses of your students, but most importantly, you'll see your IP address. So in the future, if you need it, those are just a few different ways that you can get it. In the cybersecurity course, Joyce, underneath high school. Okay. If everybody's logged in, one of the first things you want to do is get into Kali. So hopefully you're in Kali, and then we want to open a terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and open a terminal. I'm going to zoom in just to be sure everybody can see it well. And then we want to navigate to the course files directory. So CD course files / cybersecurity. Press enter. So we have a folder called course files that you can see here. And this folder has a few different folders for different courses that we offer, and it has a bunch of different files. And so when Brandon mentioned earlier that our labs are tailored to our range, this is kind of one of the things he was talking about, in that if you had Kali installed on your local machine to use in a local network that you have, some of the things we have wouldn't work because you wouldn't have access to the files, and just various different tools that we have. So here we're inside of a folder that you can navigate to, and you'll have the different pictures here, but we're going to be doing it in command line rather than through the directory. So we're going to CD metadata lab, just like I was just in the folder. Yes, Tammy asked if they can upload their own files. You can. Usually what we recommend people use is either GitHub or Google Drive. Google Drive, is that what it's called? Yeah, Drive, right? Not OneDrive. Google Drive. If I hit enter, it's going to take me to the next folder, which is the metadata lab. And then we can view this image just using a tool called XDG Open. XDG just open. And then we're going to view the file called glass. And then this is in that PowerPoint. So I'm just reviewing that. It gives you step-by-step instructions in the PowerPoint. And so what it did was it opened up that it's sideways, but it is there, and it's the inside of what looks like a beautiful church. And we kind of want to, I guess what we want to know is maybe where this might be. So let's go ahead and close this. We're gonna hit the X, but just to verify everybody did hopefully see the same image inside of a church. So now we kind of want to get some more information. We want to know how we can see where this might have been taken, or what kind of camera this might have been taken with. We can use a tool called EXIF tool. So EXIF tool glass.jpg. So earlier we used XDG-open just to view the picture. This time we're not going to see the picture, we're going to see the metadata of the picture. So if you hit open, it's going to run, but it's going to run in the terminal, and it's going to be more information than what you can see there. So if I'm just going to make mine a little bit bigger, and I'm going to scroll up, and there's a few things we want to know. One, we want to know what kind of device took this photo, what camera on the device took the photo, what is the image height and width, and what is the GPS location. So if we look around, I think the very first question, what device took this? We're kind of getting a few things that are helping us know, because it's already saying here iPhone 7 back camera. So that actually answers the second question, is which camera on the device took it. So if it's an iPhone 7 back camera, we can kind of guess that it was probably an iPhone 7 that took this. Yeah, here it goes. Camera model name, iPhone 7. Make Apple. So we know pretty much it was an iPhone 7. And then so the next camera was what device took the camera on the device? It was a back camera. What is the image height and width? So that's what we're looking for next. I'm trying to remember exactly where that's at. File size. X resolution 72, Y resolution 72. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that was it. 72 by 72. The next question is, where's the GPS location? So here, this GPS latitude and longitude, these are the answers to the last question, and that's going to be the key for the next part of this. So the next slide talks about find the location. So we want to copy these GPS coordinates and then open a web browser to go to Google Maps and then find this. So we can do all this inside of our range. So we don't have to go back out to our computer to do any of this stuff. So we're going to copy this. So latitude, Control C. Oh, no, sorry, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to hit Control C. I wanted to right click copy. Okay, so just a quick, if you don't know anything about terminal, if you hit Control C, it closes or cancels whatever you were doing. So notice that little up arrow, the C. When I hit Control C, it tried to close. I wasn't doing anything, but it tried to close whatever I was doing. So in terminal, it's always important to highlight and then left click or right click. Sorry, that's not what I want to do. Right click and then copy selection. So now notice that when I clicked on Firefox earlier, it just opened. It takes a while for Firefox to open. I made a mistake and closed it. I shouldn't have done that. The first time you open Firefox, it takes a while for it to open in Kali. So it might take a moment for this to go through. I thought I clicked it again. Maybe I didn't. So if you do click it, just know that it takes a long moment for it to open for the very first time. So we're going to go to maps.google.com. And then when here, we're going to paste that GPS location. So remember, there's two parts to this GPS location. So I'm going to right click and paste. I'm going to get the next one, which is the 2 degrees. I'm going to copy selection. Come back here. Oops. No. It didn't like that, did it? Oh, I've never had this much trouble doing this. Paste. Okay. So what I have now is 48 degrees and then 51 feet and 19.37 inches north, and then 2 degrees, 20 feet and 42.15 inches east. But it's not going to like this if you hit enter. You have to delete the degree, the word degree. And then if you press enter, it should take you. Oops, I didn't need to do that. I already had a spot. Here. Well, brought us there, kind of. Should take you there. Just be sure you delete the DEG, because if you leave the DEG in, the system, Google Maps system won't like that. You have to delete the DEG part. So I did see someone say this is how hackers find your address. Yes. However, for instance, a lot of people post photos to Facebook. Facebook strips metadata now, and I see that Brandon has elaborated on that, and he's correct. I don't know how long Facebook's been stripping metadata. I think there was definitely a time which they didn't. But I think historically they have gone back and stripped metadata. That's not to say that, like, if you post a photo on Flickr, Flickr keeps metadata specifically because people want to know what metadata is in it, like what kind of camera you took it with and things like that. So that sometimes those are very important to them, to different people. But definitely, depending on where you post a photo, correct, someone could get your information, and that's kind of the background and purpose of this particular lab. So whenever you go there, you can see that we're inside of the Saint Chapelle, and this is just a really old Gothic chapel. So the takeaway here being, whenever you do share something, be sure that you aren't sharing all of your metadata, on your phone. Be sure you turn the location off so that you're not sharing that kind of information. I'm going to pop back into my PowerPoint. Can everybody see the PowerPoint? Hopefully. I'm going to zoom down to the end here. So just to kind of pivot back to the range itself, the cyber range has an internet allow list on it. that filters access so the students are only allowed on sites that are required for the course lesson. Now there are other sites that are not going to be for that particular lesson, but we have an explicit deny. So anything that's not required for the actual curriculum or a tool that is for education purposes is not allowed on the range. We found that a lot of districts had very strict allowed lists, and so to make ours either as strict or more strict, we just deny everything, and then we have gone back and allowed certain things that are either educational for purposes of using tools, or they're used for certain labs on our range. So it's probably one of the strictest lists there is. If it's considered safe in a K-12 classroom, or it's recommended for use with our specific curriculum. If you try to visit a site, you should get a little denied. You can't go here, or please email, and then we can unlock it. So if you do want something to be allowed that you feel is a tool that's educational in your classroom, or that or if you found a mistake, like there's a lab that needs something, and for some reason we didn't catch it in a recent update, just email apps@cyber.org, and then we can see about adding that to the allow list. It is it's not necessarily that it's automatic. It's just that it's the filters built into the AWS backend that all of the VMs work off of. So there's nothing really to turn on or off. So I guess in that sense, yeah, it would be automatic. So just I want some quick tips. Whenever you first open Kali specifically, because these machines are lightweight, they're not super powerful. If you try to open terminal, you notice there's a delay for it to open. If you try to click it multiple times, it'll open multiple terminals. Same thing for Firefox. There's a long delay. So you should have all noticed that. And explaining that to students the first time they use it is helpful. You might have to explain it multiple times to students, because anytime they try to open it, it's going to take a while. The Ubuntu machine is a bit faster, and they do both work very similarly. They have a lot of the same tools. But the Kali machine, which is one of our most used machines in the cybersecurity course, does take a little while for that terminal and that Firefox. One of the most useful tools is the Control-Alt-Shift. If you're on a Mac, it's not going to work the same. It'll be Command-Alt-Shift, I believe. But Control-Alt-Shift opens up a window on the side of the machine. Hopefully you can see my screen. If I press Control-Alt-Shift, does everybody see this little window? This clipboard is the last thing I copied from this machine. So if I come here and I highlight, notice it adds this to the clipboard. This means I can actually take this out and put it in my actual machine. So I can, oops, that's not what I want to do. I do not want, me and Copilot, we don't get along. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to post this in the chat just to show you that I can do that. So yeah, Control-Command-Shift on Apple. So notice I just copy that into the chat just to prove that I can do that. I can take it out of the Kali VM and put it into my actual machine, and vice versa. So you can take something from the machine and I can put it in here. So Imani's asking something about Kali. So I'm going to copy her comment. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to backspace and I'm going to paste. And then I'm going to copy this. And then Control-Alt-Shift. I'm going to paste clipboard. So just to prove that I can move back and forth between Kali and the real world, so to speak, the VM in the real world. A couple of other things that are in here. There's an on-screen keyboard. There is a zoom feature, so I can actually zoom in to make it bigger. This is what I was talking about earlier, like on a Chromebook or something. If you wanted to be able to see better, or just make your screen bigger. But do understand that if you zoom in, it will make it harder for you to see other things because you'll have to like scroll around the screen, but it will make it easier to see a certain part of your screen. So if you're presenting on a big projector and you want to really have students be able to see that terminal, this can be very helpful. We often do that whenever we're presenting live for everybody.